to ShantaeJTaylor.com. Today we are going to continue with learning more about your brain. We're going to do a little review of Mental Training 101. Then we're going to move right into a strategy that you can use to optimize the parts of your brain and ultimately your potential. So as a review, remember you have a handy dandy model of your brain every day. So whenever you're feeling a certain way, or you're trying to get creative, or feeling frustrated, or feeling loved, you can look at your brain and say, okay, which part of my brain is being activated? How can I regulate it? How can I down-regulate it? How can I up-regulate it? So as you can recall, when you fold your four fingers over your thumb, you have created a model of the brain. This fleshy wrist part right here, this is your brain stem. This is where your unconscious activity takes place. Your breathing, your heartbeats, your remaking of cells, your healing, your sleep patterns, all that good stuff goes on right there. And thank goodness, because we don't want to think about that stuff consciously. We want to use our conscious stuff for higher order thinking. But remember, the problem lies when we live off of this part, which also encompasses our survival instincts, our basic need to want food and sex, to reproduce and fight, or to stand our ground, or to flee from danger. Okay, we don't want to live in that place. We want to be able to react when we need to, like when we're about to get hit by a car, hopefully not, but or we're getting chased by a bear. But that is unlikely to happen. So we want to make sure we recognize what part is doing what, and we want to control that, okay? The center part of our brain houses our limbic system. That's the emotional part of our brain. It also houses our short-term memory. So we want to optimize our short-term memory, and we want to make sure that our emotions are in check. And remember, there's a special part of the limbic system called the amygdala. Yeah, fancy neuroscience word. But the amygdala is very sensitive to threat. It's very sensitive to loss. Very sensitive um, to situations that causes us fear. And these situations can be external, or these situations can be internal. It can be triggered by thoughts, or it can be triggered by somebody, some words, some mental scripts running in the back of our minds. It's very sensitive. So we want to make sure that we're aware that there is this little um, region in our brain that's highly sensitive to threat and loss and negativity, and we want to make sure that we regulate that. Now, it's very important to have a sense of fear, but we want to make sure that we control how it operates. We don't want to live in that place either, because fear keeps us from progressing. Fear keeps us from making connections. Fear um, affects our behavior and how we communicate with our children, with our colleagues. And we want to make sure that we are operating not from an emotional and instinctive place, but rather we want to operate from our conscious mind. So we want to operate from our intellectual mind. We want, if there is a threat, we want to make sure that the wiring goes up to our conscious brain, the cerebral cortex, so that we can make a logical decision on how to react. Now, people tend to live in this place and in this place. So if we detect a threat, if our unconscious mind detects something, it automatically alerts the amygdala, and we feel fearful, and we send mental maps back down to instincts to react. We don't want that process. Some situations are okay, like if you see a snake in the grass, you're running from a bear, okay. You see a kid in the street, you need to go react, okay? That's fine. But when someone um, says something to you, or you think about going off of your own to start your own business, or putting out that first blog, or making your first sale, or getting on that stage, we want to make sure that we don't live here. We don't want the mental maps being exchanged from the emotional brain to the instinctive brain. We want, yes, there's a situation, you know, it's time to react, but let me think about it. Let me send some maps up to my conscious, logical mind so that I can make the decision on how to react effectively. So that is how neuroscience is demonstrating through research is, if we live in this place and if we control this place and this place, we can use our minds more optimally. We can send maps and blood flow and nutrients up here to better our decision making skills, to our creativity, our solution finding solutions, the way we react to people. Um, so this is the place we want to live, and these are the places we want to control as much as possible. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a strategy to hack into this system. Okay, because we don't want to live in this place. With the first mental training 101, I challenge you to become aware of the triggers that causes the amygdala, or your threat response, to get into gear. Okay, people, situations, words, time of day, just whatever triggers this threat response, this fear, this sharp reaction, this instinctive reaction. And I challenge you to become aware of it. Bring it to your conscious. Bring it from the unconscious to the conscious mind. Bring it from your subconscious to your conscious mind. So I only challenge you to become aware of it, because it's only when we become aware of our triggers that we can actually do something about it. So now I'm going to share with you a way to actually do something about it. Okay. Now remember, neuroscience research says when you become aware of something, your brain starts lighting up. Your logical brain, your intellectual brain, your cerebral cortex brain lights up. And so you can then do something about it. You can then say, okay, I'm aware of it. What option do I have to deal with it? How can I effectively use my brain? How can I use a strategy to shift the situation, to shift what's going on inside, and then my behavior, and um, maybe somebody's reaction to me? So I'm going to teach you to become a hacker of your brain. So hacker spelled HACCR, and it stands for halt, aware, consciousness, choose, repeat. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, since you now started to recognize what your triggers are, your brain has now practiced paying attention to those triggers. So once those triggers come and you feel something coming up, some kind of feeling, emotion, I want you to halt. I want you to stop what you're doing. If you're driving, don't stop driving. Just stop and think, okay? And I want you to become fully aware of where you're at, who you're talking to, what you're listening to, how you're feeling. You know, did you think something? Did you see something? A lot of information comes subconsciously. That means just below our awareness. So if you halt and then try to bring it from your subconscious level, your pre-conscious level, level of awareness to your conscious level of awareness, you can do the next step. Once you become aware, then you become consciously aware. Then you can do the next step, which is to choose a strategy. See, our brain likes to have options. Now, we don't like a billion options, but we like some options. And sometimes we think we have no options, so we start operating off of instinct. And we start to do things and act a certain way out of fear. So now you have an option. Once you bring it into your consciousness, now you can do the next C, which is to choose a strategy to use to regulate that thought, to reappraise that thought, to relabel your situation, to put it in a better context, to think a more positive thought, to replace that negative thought. Once you figure out the strategy that seems to consistently work for you, there's a part of your brain called the basal ganglia located in your front part of your brain, your intellectual brain, that will start to make it a habit. It thrives off making situations habits, thinking habits, because the more you make something a habit, the more you make it routine, the more you can use your mental energy for other things. So this is a good thing. You want to practice this. You want to repeat it. That's what the R stands for. So you want to halt, stop what you're doing so you can pay attention. You want to become aware of how you're feeling, what you're doing, what you're looking at, what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Is it internal? Was it a thought? What is causing this uprising? You want to bring that awareness to your consciousness, okay? And then you want to choose a strategy to regulate those feelings, that reaction, and then you want to keep repeating it until it becomes a habit so that it becomes more energy efficient for your brain, because your brain wants to do other things. So the more you can make your reactions a habit, a conscious habit, not a reactive, instinctive habit, the better, the more you can use your brain for other higher order thinking, decisions, judgments, planning, visualizing. Your main brain, your cerebral cortex, is the CEO of your brain. It's the captain of the ship. It needs to lead the other parts of your brain. But if you're emotionally caught up, if you're living off of instincts, then blood won't flow to that part of the brain. Fear will dominate. Threats will dominate. And we don't want it to dominate. So we want to give back control to the cerebral cortex. And we want to make things habitual. We want to make things habit as much as we can. We want to optimize our cerebral cortex in order to find solutions, to take the steps necessary to build that business, get on that stage and give that presentation, to interact with our children and our husbands, and our wives and our spouses, our significant others, with a sound mind, with a peaceful mind. We don't want to operate off of fear. We don't want to operate off of out of threat, because we won't be our true authentic selves. Don't you want to be your true authentic selves? Don't you want to operate at the highest level possible? Well, you can. And I just gave you the strategy to hack into the systems of your mind. You want to update that software. You know, all animals come with basic brain structures. We all have instincts. But what separates humans from animals is our higher order thinking, this part of the brain. We're able to logically think things through. We're able to make decisions. We're able to use judgments. We don't have to operate here. We don't need to. That's how we're able to advance in society, is that we're able to use this part of the brain to create, to build, to grow, to advance. But the state of the world as it is, a lot of people are living here in fear. They're being threatened. They feel threatened. And we need to get out of this stage, and we need to get back in this stage, in our creative mode, in our thoughtful mode, in our logical mode. Now you have a system. It's time to upgrade your system. It's time to hack into that old computer software, that instinctive program, that fearful program. It's time to hack into that system, challenge it, and reroute it to the front part of your intellectual brain, your creative brain. As always, I would love to hear your insights. I would love to hear your growth. I would love to hear your comments, or read your comments down below. That's where the fun takes place. Remember that it's your time. It's time for you to finally do the things that you've been thinking about, that you've been dreaming about, that you wished when you were a child that you could do, or as a young adult. It's time to get back to that place where anything was possible. You can do it. It's your time and it's your potential. And let's continue to tap it together. I'll see you next time.